Good evening. Good afternoon, I guess. I would like to welcome everyone to the Town of Lexington Special Call Council meeting. This meeting is being held at Town Hall Monday, January 13th, 2025. I am Hazel Livingston, the Mayor of the Town of Lexington, and I would like to welcome my fellow council members. To my left is Mayor Pro Tem Ron Williams.
Good afternoon.
To his left is Todd Lyle.
Good evening.
To his left is Jenny Michaels.
Hello.
To my right is Councilmember Todd Carnes.
Good evening. Oh, hello. Good day.
We're confused.
To his right is Councilmember Gavin Smith.
Good afternoon.
And to his right is Councilmember Will Allen.
Afternoon, y'all.
I would like to ask Councilmember Allen to give our opening invocation.
Sure. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful day. Thank you so much for this beautiful town. Thank you for this opportunity for us to serve our neighbors. Please continue to guide us and teach us, Lord. Help us make the best decisions for our neighbors in this town and guide our footsteps. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And I would like to ask Councilmember Smith to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will now call the meeting to order, and I would like to report on our executive session this afternoon. During the executive session there was discussion regarding West Columbia water litigation and advice regarding the agenda item. No vote was taken except to adjourn the executive session. Is there a motion to ratify the executive session report?
So moved.
Councilman Lyle makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams seconds it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. And it is unanimous. Are there any deletions of items on this afternoon's agenda? There's only one item on it, so. Hearing none. Our first and only item is first reading, development of impact fees update, phase 1, Councilmember Carnes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The impact fee ordinance adopted on February 1st, 2020 outlines that a comprehensive review and update of the development impact fee study report for Lexington, the Town of Lexington Capital Improvements Plan, the housing affordability analysis in support of a development impact fee study, and the development impact fee ordinance is required at least once every 5 years. The Planning Commission reviewed and recommended approval of adopting phase 1 of the updated items at their December 2024 meeting, which includes the municipal facilities and parks and recreation components of the impact fee ordinance. The transportation component will be updated after completing the local transportation improvement plan, second edition. Madam Mayor, I make a motion for first reading approval to adopt phase 1 of the updated Town of Lexington Development Impact Fee Study, Housing Affordability Study, Capital Improvement Plan, and Development Impact Fee Ordinance.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Let me ask you, Councilmember Smith, if you would be okay if we let staff give us their presentations before we start discussion? Sure. I should have thought about that first. I'm sorry.
No problem.
If not, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead.
But can y'all do y'all's presentation and then?
Yes, Mayor, and we're going to do it from our seat, if that's okay with you all. I want to do a very brief intro, and Stuart has a presentation with lots of good information for you. I just wanted to set the stage because we didn't discuss it in great detail during our last meeting. I just want to remind you and everyone who is watching now or later that there are a number of backup documents that are provided for reference in addition to the ordinance and the studies. The PowerPoint presentation that was delivered last week by Matt Noonsker from City Explain is also included in our backup documentation. It's found online, so if anyone who wants to reference it can. The impact fee ordinance was enacted starting February 1, 2020, and it has a 10-year sunset date. So what we are talking about is that ordinance that currently is in place through January 31 of 2030. So this 5-year update does a couple things for us. First, it makes sure that we're in compliance with state law, which is quite important. But it also allows us to take a look at the fees that we charge, and it allows us to take a look at the projects where we want to allocate the resources. So we have to do this study if we make any adjustment upward on the fee for you all to consider. As was mentioned, we're calling this phase 1 because this is related specifically to parks and recreation and municipal facilities. Transportation component is still under review, thus that fee adjustment will not change. Or that fee will not change, there is no adjustment. The Planning Commission has reviewed the updated documents and the ordinance that's proposed here. They reviewed it at their December 18th meeting, and they recommend it for you all for review and approval. In this ordinance update, what we're asking you to consider is adjusting the impact fee rates and the projects where we're allowed to spend our money. So staff has proposed adding some additional projects within the CIP that you can see there. And staff adjust the impact fee amounts with those that were derived from the updated study. Through this ordinance, we simply say that our fees from here on out will be guided by this new study. We also did maintain the existing discount rate of 0. So of course, we welcome the questions and the discussion, and certainly if there are any adjustments that council would like to make to the ordinance, whether it's related to rates or projects, we can certainly discuss those, and there is time to make those adjustments before the second reading. And I'll turn it over to Stuart.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, this brief presentation, I want to first of all thank Jessica Lybrand, who initially put this presentation together for an update that was done some time ago. We've refreshed it and updated it for you today to cover the information that is vital for you to have. Also want to thank folks in the finance department that contributed as well. Some highlights here. The impact fee update is a chance, as Rachel said, for you to adjust rates or change the CIP. It goes through the end of January of 2030. The impact fee from day one was intended to supplement other funding sources. We knew that the impact fee wouldn't be able to cover the full cost of major projects that we have in the town, but this was an opportunity to put impact fees in the mix to help offset some of the costs. The CIP budgets are based on an expected timing of when we can actually spend the money on a pay-as-you-go basis. We've not borrowed against impact fees. We've treated this much like we've done with H-Tax, going on a pay-as-you-go basis. The budget reflects the maximum amount of expenditure that we could incur using the impact fee for a specific project. And as we've mentioned, council, through the process that's outlined in the statute, can update the CIP periodically. We know that residential and commercial developments create impacts, and so the impact fee applies to both residential and commercial. We know that the in-town market is not the only market that supports all of the commercial business in the town. We have a service population that far exceeds the town population, and so the commercial development that we see in the town of Lexington is being driven by those in and out of town. And so the residential side contributes to impacts, and so does the commercial in the town of Lexington for town services, be it police, be it our code enforcement, all types of impacts. And frankly, it impacts services that are provided by the county as well, such as fire. Another thing that I thought about, and I believe it's the case, sometimes residential development comes to an area because there is a significant amount of commercial activity there. People want to be close to places they can shop, places they can go for entertainment. So it's a very tightly wedded relationship between commercial and residential growth and how it impacts the town. So these fees apply to both. Now, of course, there are challenges when you implement an impact fee. And one of the things was tough cases that you come across, and town council took steps to address some tough cases. In fact, changing the ordinance to make it very explicit that vacant buildings at the inception of the ordinance should be given credit for the highest use that can be determined that was there. And also that temporary changes of use will not trigger an impact fee. One of the things I think that has been a significant challenge for many folks that have implemented impact fees is the state statute that requires a 3-year spending of the funds that you collect when they're scheduled to be expended by your in accordance with your CIP. So that window has to be observed. And so that's when we budget, we know that's the case. We have the opportunity to come back and you can update budgets periodically. But that is a challenge that everyone that implements an impact fee has to take into account. So another major challenge has been the global pandemic that we went through. That significantly impacted the timing of numerous projects, but I think more importantly, has substantially increased the cost of projects. The inflationary environment that occurred in 21 and 22, 23 has been extraordinary in development. And so that impacts who's been able to come, whether it's residential, but also commercial, but it also impacts the cost of projects. And we've had to delay projects, not just talking about impact fee, but overall, because of the significant costs that were being provided to us through the bid process. And so we've taken steps to try to make sure that when projects go out, that we're getting the most economic value we can. But that is a significant challenge that we face. Also, in working with Lexington County, they canceled our roads agreement, which has impacted some development in town because of residential not knowing how their roads would be maintained. This has been less likely to occur. So that's another factor that comes into the mix when you're dealing with impact fees. This chart was provided by finance that shows graphically how we've collected impact fees for the various elements of impact fees, transportation, parks, and municipal facilities, year by year for the 5-year period, going into the 6th year now. This chart tells us what we've collected and who it's come from, whether it's residential or commercial. And my eyes are not quite as good as they used to be, so I'm going to pull out my notes. See this. So for transportation, you see that the commercial side, about $896,000 from commercial and $250,000 in transportation from residential. On the municipal facilities, $121,000 from commercial, about $65,000 from residential, and parks is only paid by residential, and that's almost $389,000. A total collection to date in impact fees of $1.7 million. And in summary, 1,017,000 commercial and about 704,000 residential. This map is the 2024 map that shows the various colors, commercial in red, locations that have paid impact fees, the blue, residential, and then the yellow are the historical, the previous years. And then we did the same for 25, where the 24 now rolled into the historical. So that's just to give you some idea of the areas where impact fees have been collected. With the commercial fees, we've had 90 projects to date that have paid. And as I mentioned earlier, $1,017,000 has been collected from those 90 projects. And we have 7 projects pending, and they've been quoted impact fees of about $63,000. And over the life of the impact fee, 6 projects have appealed. 3 were resolved administratively through the town administrator, and 3 projects have been appealed to town council for resolution. This is an inventory of the residential. I think the 2 most important things to see on this chart is the number of unimproved lots that are in the pipeline right now is 523, and of those, 364 are subject to impact fees. The others would have been in projects that had been grandfathered at the initiation of this ordinance. Those 300 plus homes, using the fees that are in place today, Jessica calculated the future revenue from those that are on the boards, and it totals $822,000. You see 276 for transportation, 468 for parks and rec, and then municipal facilities, about 79. This chart, this table shows you the total collections to date for each fee, transportation, parks, municipal facilities, plus the interest that has been collected. So we're up to 1.724 once you count the interest. And you see we've gotten 1.1 from transportations, 389,000 from parks, and 186 to date for municipal facilities. Of those collections, we've spent $138,000 on Old Cherokee Sunset Project, $389,000 for Virginia Hilton Park, and $39,000 on the Clark House renovations. So today we have about $1,160,000 in round numbers available to spend. Those would be for transportation, $1,011,709, and $147,915 for municipal facilities. Now, of the budget that was adopted originally, we have that 3-year window from when things are scheduled to be expended to actually spend the money. And so you see on this chart the expiration period based upon the original budget. The original budget, we had transportation project for Whiteford Way Sunset. So $750,000 will expire this year on that particular project. Part of that project has been done by private development, which is one of the features that we have here, is that sometimes these projects are actually done through the development process and not actually paid for by impact fees. We have a project for Gibson Road at US 1 and 378 on the west side of town. We have $100,000 that will expire this year and $900,000 next year. We've got a $191,000 engineering purchase order in effect. We've got a contract with an engineer doing the engineering work on that intersection to get that in form for us to move forward in the future. You also have a budget for under municipal facilities, the signal shop for transportation. They're working out of a rented trailer right now under the Hendrick Street water tower. But this would create a proper facility for the operations of the transportation signal department. We also have planned since before we adopted the impact fees, to do some work at Bruner to have additional storage. It was designed to expand. And so those monies are still available under the current budget as we sit today. As part of the update, we have proposed and presented to the Planning Commission and now to you a proposed update to take us through the year 2029. And we have several parking improvements related to parks around the town, so that those you see on the list. You see the Mill Pond Park, which is related to our parks facility on the old Mill Pond. Our parks facility is located where the old utilities department was. You know that there's the old original water plant is there, and we've got in-ground storage for water there. The plan is ultimately to move the in-ground to above-ground storage, and this park was envisioned as a nice place for the location of the Parks Department that the citizens could enjoy as well. And to highlight the historic water facility there, the idea was to keep the old water plant facility, the facade there, and to emphasize that. A lot of creativity could go into that park, but that was the idea when this park was conceived a number of years ago. Under municipal facilities, you see a parking project that's not directly related to a park. And then you see the signal shop that we talked about, adjusting that budget along with the Bruner Road storage. The reason we've got this adjusted is as we've gone through the process of thinking about how do we expand storage at Bruner Road and how do we do this signal shop, we realized that it all ties together because we've got to address employee parking, we've got to address the needs for additional storage as the departments grow, and where do we put the signal shop? It's a very intricate, they play off of each other, and so I envision that we're going to have to hire some folks to help us to come up with the actual plan to best use the space that we have and to make recommendations so that we can go forward with a plan on those facilities. And we had also, going back to the original budget and the 10-year budget when we originally adopted impact fees, we had envisioned as part of the Mill Pond Park an updated park headquarters. So that's what's in the new budget proposed to you, and that's the update as we have prepared it for you. I hope that is helpful.
I guess now we will start with questions. Whether we have any of staff or just whether you have any period or any comments. Gavin, we started a while ago, so we'll let you go.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you.
Rachel or Stuart, what was, I wasn't on council in 2019-20 when the impact fees were initially adopted. And I'd also point out that our meetings were not put on YouTube, so I couldn't go back and find it. What was the initial purpose of impact fees?
Well, our direction from council was we had major impacts from growth, transportation being a primary concern. We explored impact fees as a way to supplement other sources that we had developed, such as H-tax, so that we were able to do as much as possible to address the pressing needs in the community that were driven by extraordinary growth over the past 3 or 4 decades, really. It's really something that when you have a decade of growth that's about 35% of in-town population going up, and you think that's slowing down, that's where we are. The most recent census was about 35% growth. In previous decades, it had been greater. So this growth has placed demands on the town, and council's directions to staff was to find opportunities to address those needs.
Thank you, Stuart. I want to offer a point of clarification. I don't mean to insinuate that formal council meetings weren't on YouTube. I believe they were. I wasn't here, but work sessions were not, and that's typically where we have, work through questions. So just want to give you that point of clarification. So my next question is, council passed the impact fees in 2020, and in accordance with the ordinance and in accordance with state statute, we are required to do a 5-year update. So obviously that makes it due now, February 1st, 2025. When did we order the update?
The update was budgeted for in the FY25 budget. We had always intended on utilizing consultant services, City explained, who I'd referenced previously. We've been in communication with them probably since April of 2024, knowing that this time was coming, and the study got underway, I believe, in October this year.
So why did we wait between April and October?
We just had competing priorities. Well, we couldn't get underway at all until we had the funding available, which was in the FY25 budget.
So we ordered the study in October, and we received the study when?
I do believe it was the night before the Planning Commission meeting.
Which was December 18th-ish or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had this study for council to consider for less than a month.
I take it back, my apologies. We received it prior to the Planning Commission agenda going out because it was provided as backup documentation. And so all the backup documentation went out on December 11th.
Okay, yeah, Jessica typically does a great job sending that out in advance. So we received it about a month ago, and council has had about a month to consider this. I guess my question is, we've known this is coming for quite some time, and now we are 20-ish days away from the deadline. I'll be transparent and say I don't think I have enough information, and we can get into that, but maybe the rest of council feels as though they do. How did we get here? I mean, how did we get to the point where we're now up against the gun?
I'm not really sure how to respond. I'll let you know. We had a variety of competing priorities. We did let council know this was coming at the beginning of November. I advised you all what the time frame was going to be. I gave you a heads up on when all of the dates were going to be for Planning Commission as well as Town Council.
I just think that this is a very important decision that, even in November, 2 months to consider this, we're talking about 5 years worth of planning for the town, a part that I've never heard of. When I read the capital improvement plan, I even called around and asked, and some people hadn't heard of it themselves or stated that they didn't. And now I'm being asked today to vote on a part that I've never even seen concepts for, a budget for, a plan for, and I don't know anything about it. So I guess my frustration is that I know there's a lot that goes on here at Town Hall, but how did we get to the point where now we're up against the gun, we're being asked to vote on a capital improvement plan that to me feels like it's being rushed, like we didn't go through it. I guess, how can we avoid that in the future? It doesn't seem like we're going to do anything about it now, but how can we avoid that in the future?
Again, I'm not sure how to respond to that. This is our opportunity to discuss what's incorporated in the ordinance. This is your opportunity to let us know what you would like to see in the capital improvement plan, what you would like to amend. You can certainly do that here at first reading.
Well, with all due respect, I think the proper place to discuss this would have been a work session, but it didn't come to a work session. So now we're having to do this in a formal council meeting. I'll defer to anyone else that has some questions. I have other questions, but I won't hog the mic right now.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
So, Rachel, if we go forth, as is today, this can be adjusted. It's not like it's written in stone today. We can make amendments. We can add projects. Yep. We can increase, decrease. So there is still options.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Stuart, could you explain to the public and to council where these projects came from? that are on the current list?
So the projects were initially, most of the transportation projects that initially showed up were in the LTIP that we had done, and others were known ongoing projects of the town. So we put them into the CIP budget for impact fees so that they could supplement other funding sources.
Okay.
And much the same is true of what's been presented today. We know that there are projects that are coming up that we're going to do related to parking and others. And so they're in the CIP because they're impact fee eligible, and we put them in the CIP, they can supplement other sources so that, we can maximize, have the maximum flexibility in how we fund projects.
Thank you.
And I would just like to piggyback on that. And Ron, I think too that we asked our staff many years ago to find creative ways for us to start improving what we could on traffic and other areas that were being taxed, I guess, from the influx of growth, whether it be a business that brought in a lot of traffic from outside the town limits of the 25,000 people that directly, the people that come in to support our businesses. But we give you a challenge, and with Randy's guidance and you, Stuart, being here, and Rachel, you're new, and some of y'all are new, but Jessica, you played a part in that too. But with the staff working and being creative, they found ways, and we're one of the only people in Lexington County that's trying to do road improvements. No, they're not massive, no, they're not big, but we are doing small things to try to improve traffic and congestion. Whether whoever caused it, we're trying to help mitigate it, and we're trying to fix some things while we look for larger amounts of funding. So I appreciate y'all. I appreciate what y'all have done to try to come up with creative ways. I appreciate Randy always looking at something, trying to figure out what can we do little. And I always go back when I'm talking and speaking in the public is go back to Mineral Springs Road and what that used to be to try to get out on 378. Is it perfect? No. Will it ever be perfect? Probably not. But it's a whole lot better than it was 10 years ago. I can tell you that. So there's been a lot of improvements made in and around the community thanks to the different ideas that y'all have come up with, and it takes all of them, because I can guarantee you, even if we can find some money in our budget, it wouldn't be enough to do these kind of things. So I appreciate what y'all done. Chief, I'm sure you play in there somehow.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, just for the sake of clarity for the people listening, when impact fees were implemented a little over 5 years ago, and I'm not sure, maybe you guys know, I don't know of any other municipality that currently has impact fees implemented. I do know that Lexington County has voiced multiple times that they would like to have an impact fee implemented so that new people coming to the community, new people building new houses, building new businesses could actually contribute to the infrastructure needs instead of leaving that burden on the citizens that are already here. But I've heard multiple council members say on the record that they couldn't do it because it is so cumbersome, so complex. State law is very difficult. It puts strictures on you. You're supposed to do road projects in 3 years. Road projects don't last 3 years. You have to come up with a 10-year plan and tell everybody what parks you're going to improve, what municipal facilities you're going to improve, what transportation you're going to improve 10 years down the road, when you don't even know what subdivisions are going in and what businesses are going in. And so there's no perfect laws. When you put something down on paper, it's difficult. And so we, as far as I know, there may be others, there are, I applaud them, but I think we may be the only people in Lexington County that currently have an impact fee. And we did all the push-ups, and we went through the work, and we navigated that crazy state law, and we did come up with a 10-year plan of capital improvement projects that went through our planning commission, came through our council, and it was a 10-year projection. And so do you have to make some educated guesstimates on that? Absolutely. And so we made a bunch of educated guesstimates, but obviously we do have the ability to amend that as you go because nobody makes a 10-year plan and runs it. It's just not the way life works. We were making this plan FYI pre-COVID, and so prices have doubled to tripled since then, certainly impacted our capital improvement plan and the things that we actually have the fiscal ability to do. And so we went through, did the push-ups, actually came out on the other side with an impact fee that meets state law and is cumbersome, certainly in some areas. And so we're trying to work on that, but so that the listening citizens would know that's how we got to where we're at. So we're halfway through. Looks like we've collected about $1.8 million. We've been able to spend a good portion of that. We have a lot of the rest of it allocated. I would imagine we would come up with a similar number over the next 5 years. And so it would have a $3 to $4 million impact, including about $2,400 per rooftop for every new house that comes in, and then various fees for businesses based on their traffic counts. And so it's complex, it's difficult, but the items in front of us today, as we look at this capital improvement plan, there are some things on there that are forecasted multiple years out that we will have to treat this as a living document and make adjustments on the fly, even as we did when COVID came. We had to push off some transportation projects, but Mayor, I would say, just backing up to what you said, I mean, we have, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think I'll be close, and y'all can tell me I'm wrong if I'm wrong, but probably 15 million, we've probably come up with about 15 million that we've invested personally in investments on state roads and county roads, not town roads, but state roads, county roads, what we did on North Lake, what we did downtown, some of the engineering that's coming up on Corley Mill, and we do have latitude to spend about another 35 million that's coming down the pike, primarily on the Corley Mill interchange with Sunset Boulevard. And so all of these things coalesce together to try to work on our traffic, but I would say overall, I'm certainly proud of the fact that we came up with an impact fee that did require developers, both commercial developers and residential developers, to contribute as they come into our community. They're welcome, we want them here, but we need them to help pay for the infrastructure costs that they bring. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I don't think that there's any debate here that anyone has an issue with developers paying a part, paying their fair share when it comes to the impact they place on our community. But when I go back and listen to council meetings or talk with other council members, the primary purpose of this impact fee ordinance put in place years and years ago, or if you go listen to the legislature discussions when they were passing the State Impact Development Impact Fee Act, most conversations centered around what home developers, the impact that they place on our communities. And I spent time even talking with home developers, and they don't have any issue in also paying those development impact fees, because they recognize that if you come in and you build a neighborhood that has 300 homes, you're going to have an impact on the community, and you're going to pay an impact fee to help offset the strain that you're placing on the system or the additional capacity that the system needs. I don't think anyone's debating that, but what the issue that I take with this is that the data doesn't lie here. 60% of the impact fees we've collected have been collected by commercial properties. You know, and I don't think that that was the intended usage. And further, I ran another analysis on this. In total, $1.15 million, $1,147,35 has been collected in transportation products, which is 66% of the impact fees. But 78% of these impact fees for transportation projects has been collected by commercial developers, not the home developers. Residential home developers have only paid nearly 21% of the impact fees collected for transportation projects. So at the end of the day, 21% of the impact fees collected that have gone to transportation have been paid by residential, not the intended use of this. I mean, at the end of the day, I think that commercial accounts, do they really have 80% of the impact on our system? Is that really a fair distribution of the strain they're placing on the system?
Madam Mayor?
Go ahead.
I don't have all that math in front of me. And I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that it's quite fair just to look at the transportation category when you talk about those numbers. I think you got to look at the overall numbers, and the overall numbers are commercial fees paid thus far are $950,000. Commercial fees paid are $1,072,000, and residential fees paid are $700,000. So I can swag the math on that. That's 1.8 million. So 64%. But again, the state law it excludes commercial from having any responsibility in the realm of Parks and Recreation.
Yeah.
And we don't get to change those laws. And so I think if you look at it across the board, it's just what we've got from a state law perspective. And at the same time, the new homes, they have contributed $388,000 to Parks and Recreation. And I mean, over the last 3 years, we've made about a $9 million investment in parks around here, in doing everything we did to Virginia Hilton Park, in creating the Old Mill Pond Park, in refurbishing Corley Mill Park. Like we've made significant investment in parks, which I think we're all proud of. And as Stuart alluded to, this is not a primary funding source for this. This was 5% of that money. But it is something, and it is something that's not placed on the backs of our citizens, but it's provided by development. And so I think it's fine. I wish that it was tilted more towards residential, but the fact of the matter is I think I've done the numbers. We've done about 300 residential units. If it was simply residential, it would be precious little money for us to do anything with. I'm not even sure if we would have been back in 2019 contemplating this and said we're going to put it only on residential and there's going to be 300 homes in the next 5 years. I don't know that we would have gone through all of the hoops to even implement something like that if it was going to be such a small number.
I think too, can I piggyback on something he says first? I think too, what you're saying is, I know we talked about the numbers of the commercial and everything, but there's also some businesses that have had major impacts on traffic and that type of thing, especially, different ones have had a major impact on some of our main thoroughfares. So I do think it's some things, some of the businesses do have a big impact on traffic coming down 378 and coming down some of the others. And so I think that it is right that everybody that's new coming does participate in what's going on and how the people that are already here is affected. So I do think it's important. Yes, Councilmember Lyle.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to piggyback a little bit of what you'd already just said. Gavin, I think the key is 66% by your own admission goes towards transportation, which when I voted this in back in 2020, I kind of held my nose and did it for that reason. I was voted in to address traffic issues. That will always be my number one concern, and 2/3 of this goes towards traffic. So that's key for me. But the other thing I want to make sure we do point out, and I think you sort of just said this, Madam Mayor, is, or actually the both of you said this, Councilmember Carnes and Madam Mayor, we're following a state statute that's, in order to comply, we have to have those variables addressed at those different prorated amounts. So we can't just adjust the fulcrum on the lever to say we're going to put more. We have to follow those percentages based on what our study shows to follow and comply with the ordinance. Secondarily, I think what you just said, Madam Mayor, and this is what I wanted to point out, was the influence over businesses in the town is the only thing we can do as a town. The trips are generated by a lot of out-of-town residents that we have no influence over unless the impact that they make on those establishments is within the town. So I don't think it would be, I think it'd be very disparate or disproportional to shoulder that on the residential homes that are only creating a fraction of the impact on these businesses. For example, let's just use an example. The Whataburger is going to open here very soon. I would bet if we put a traffic counter out front and surveyed everyone going through that drive-through, there'd be a lot of trips, and I think the overwhelming majority of those people going through that drive-through are going to be non-town residents. So it'd be wholly unfair to adjust an impact fee on those residents that are in the town when they're only a small percentage of those actual impacts. And so the most fair place then to look is the actual establishment itself, which would be the Whataburger. I don't love it, just like anything else, but I think as long as we keep a good pulse on what it's doing, we manage it correctly, and we all have the best interest of the town at heart, and we do it in a conservative and a fiscal manner, this area is continuing to grow. It's continuing to be a place that people want to come. And so it's incumbent upon us to be responsible and do the hard work that you did. I commend you for doing the research and looking at the data. How can we make this the best place to be and still follow the law of the land, follow the state legislature? But I'm in favor of this. There's parts of it that I don't like, but just like 5 years ago when I voted in favor of it, I think the good significantly outweighs the bad.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I hear you on that, Councilmember Lyle, and appreciate those comments.
Sure.
You know, I think the thing for me, and you, Madam Mayor, you know, pointing out that there are certainly commercial developments that have an impact on traffic. But at the end of the day, commercial, let's just say businesses in general, they're taxed with impact fees. They're taxed with permit fees. They're taxed with business license fees. They're taxed with tap fees. When is enough enough? You know, this is an opportunity for us to take some of that burden off of our businesses. I've seen tap fees that are $20,000. That's huge for a business in the town of Lexington. I mean, this is an opportunity for the town to take the burden off of some of our businesses so that we can bring some more of those local owned businesses into our town. Look, at the end, as we're debating this, there are pluses on both sides of this, and I see it. And Councilmember Carnes, you're right. We are bound, and Lyle, we're bound by a state statute. We can only do what the state statute allows us to do. So I think that regardless of how this proceeds today, it's inherent upon us as a council to go to the state legislature, our representatives, Chris Wooten, Paula Raw Calhoun, our senators, and ask them to make some changes to this law to give us a little more flexibility, because there are some things that we could handle better at the local level, some things that we're seeing directly that maybe the state legislature isn't entirely in tune with.
Anybody? Yes.
So, Rachel, Stewart, there are some things that, with what Councilman Smith just said, there are some potential adjustments or some research that can be done to counteract some of the impact fees for some businesses, say, you know, some of the permit fees, maybe interchange, lessening that versus lessening the impact, you know, so it's not, it all kind of calculates out to be helpful or to a business.
Yes, I think what you're referring to is what was mentioned the other night at the meeting about some ways various municipalities and local governments have addressed by lowering certain other permit fees. I believe that's the genesis of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, we haven't explored that in any real depth at this point.
Is that's something that y'all could explore and look into a little bit?
If that's the will of
Potentially.
council, we'd be
Yeah.
glad to do what we can.
Okay.
Do you already have a mechanism for appeals and for working with somebody that it is bringing a hardship to, and that don't you already have some things in place for appeals?
So here's how it plays out. We get an estimate for what the impact fee will be. The person who's paying it can appeal it. It's an administrative appeal first to the staff to reconsider, to take into consideration certain things. For a lot of folks that are paying the fee, we do an analysis of what the ordinance calls an independent evaluation. We basically do that internally based upon factors that aren't necessarily taken into consideration in the overall numbers, specific limitations that folks may have about the trips that they can potentially do, various things like that. They don't have the capacity to do that number of trips. So that analysis can be done. if a fee payer is not satisfied, the appeal can go to the town administrator. The ordinance allows the town administrator to look at all of the facts and circumstances to make certain that the fee that's being charged is representative of the trips being generated. Then there is an appeal that can come to town council. As we mentioned, we've had, I think we said 3 that have come before this body, and town council can look at it from your point of view and make sure that it's being done fairly, equitably, and justly.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir.
could I ask one question related to residential impact fees? Can you help me understand, I dug through the spreadsheet that you sent us, and also I noticed that, I'm going to use a rough number, $9,000 or so has been billed to Habitat for Humanity. Are we really collecting impact fees from a nonprofit organization that's coming into our community and trying to do good and build people homes?
Mayor, can I answer that?
Yes.
So Mission Lexington was looking at building a building on 378, and yes, we will pay an impact fee. And we are a nonprofit.
And do you have a problem with that?
No, I do not. Because we act.
Well, I
we
think
act as
Mission
Habitat.
Lexington is a little different than one single house that Habitat for Humanity is. I certainly understand your position on that, Ron.
Again, it comes down to what the state law was drafted up to. We can't pick and choose which nonprofit, and I serve on the board of Habitat for Humanity, and I don't have a problem with us paying it because we are adding to, and we're collecting funds, we're fundraising to pay to build that home. That's part of the cost of building a home.
Well, I'll happily be on the record and say I have an issue with that, because I think that if we could do some good on the town's behalf and help that organization who's trying to build someone a home, I wouldn't have any issue with that.
Madam
Again,
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I don't know, but it seems like there was, maybe somebody could look into it, but I'm pretty sure there was maybe some consideration given to Habitat for Humanity in the realm of tap fees.
there was.
Is that correct, Ron?
Yes, sir.
So we couldn't really do it here, but we did provide them some consideration when it came to their tap fees. And so, but just to piggyback a little bit on there, while we're talking about all these issues, I mean, tap fees certainly can be very expensive, but my understanding is tap fees are pretty much revenue neutral. Tap fees are there to purchase new facilities that treat our sewage, and we're looking down the barrel of an expansion of the sewer treatment plant that we jointly have participation with Casey of if not tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars. I know these numbers get big, but I would imagine that number, I mean, we're between 50 and $100 million. We're staring down the throat of that kind of facility that we're going to have to build in the next 5 to 10 years after having done something similar about 15, 20 years ago. And so, I mean, I own a business in town. I pay a business license fee, and I want everybody to understand that business license fees are real. They pay for our police department. And I think Chief's out there. Chief, we got about 70 officers that keep our crime rates in town significantly lower than anything else around. And people don't understand and I didn't before I got here, the math of that, but basically the business license fees in town basically pay for our police department. And we're certainly happy to have them. And the sewer, the tap fees, they're revenue neutral. They pay for facilities, which are crazy expensive, and the EPA is making them more expensive all the time. And then impact fees are there to try to supplement a few of the things that we're doing along the way. So it is frustrating when you write all those checks and you're a consumer, you're a business owner, you're somebody who's going, where's my money going? And I mean, there's a lot of small business owners up here. Like we all write the checks. And so just please ask the questions. There are good answers behind it, and we're doing everything we can to be fiscally responsible, maintain a great police department. When a community has 35% growth over a decade, and if I'm not wrong, I think the decade before that we might have doubled. We had 100% growth, and then we had 35% growth. And just understand, there is absolutely no funding mechanism in the federal government or in the state government to keep up with infrastructure in that type of high growth environment, because a lot of people want to come be our neighbors. And so if you're not creative and you're not quick on your feet, you don't find some alternative sources, you're not going to have clean water and you're not going to have a PD. And we're going to maintain those things because we want to maintain a great community.
And don't forget your garbage service.
And the parks.
And your garbage service.
And the parks and the garbage service. So I'm done. Thank you, Mayor.
So,
Mayor.
and you're right. I mean, Todd, you're very right. There's, people want to come here. I guess it's all the wonderful people that's here. Maybe it's just this wonderful council that's sitting up here. I don't know. But they do want to come. People want to be here. They want to enjoy this area. I was telling Rachel that someone from my hometown contacted me last night. My wife thinks she wants to move to Lexington. Do you know anybody that's hiring? And I was like, huh? You know, just out of nowhere. And so I have no clue what that's about, but we do have a tough job up here making decisions and trying to find, and like he said, we've got some big decisions coming up with the water plant and with the sewer plant that we're in joint ventures with other municipalities with, and then we've got our sanitation coming up that we got all these new homes too that's got to be added to that, and it's just a lot going on. So to be able to work hard to find, even if it's small pockets and small opportunities to improve traffic or to do improvements for the community, for that.
Mayor, Ms. Lybrand, can you come up, please? Were you present for the Planning Commission meeting where they discussed this?
Yes.
Awesome. Did, how many members were there?
8 members were present.
8. They made a recommendation to council. Was it a unanimous recommendation or was it a split recommendation?
Unanimous.
You know, did they have any heartburn with any of this projects that we're proposing or any of the fees that we're looking at?
No, sir. They were in favor.
They were in favor 100%?
The update, yes, sir.
Okay.
And a lot of them are small business and developers, aren't they?
Correct.
Well, they're all citizens of the town and volunteers. They're volunteer their time to look at this, and so they've looked at it as well. So, you know, I appreciate your input. I was curious if there was any split decision by them. I have a couple of them have reached out to me, but I didn't want to ask them how others voted. Thank you, Mayor. You know, I wish the law was different. I wish we could make stipulations in the ordinance that we currently have that would allow a smaller business not to have to pay this, but because of the way the law is written, it binds our hands that we either have to do it or not do it. And, you know, I agree with Councilman Lyle that this is 2/3 good, 1/3 bad, and we have to take the good with the bad, unfortunately. So I'm going to vote in support of this.
And I think that I encourage y'all to, this is first vote. You have another vote coming up on the 22nd. Is it 22nd or 21st? 21st. I encourage you to come down and let council show you whatever you need to see on these projects and understand them better. Take your time, come down here and go over them. Some of these projects, now that I think back, I didn't know the name, but have been out there for years, like the old water plant and stuff. It's been floating there for years. So for it to be given a name, I'm sure it's not to the point that it's fully ready to give a full presentation on, but I know there's been general conversation, and some of that has come from years of vision plan and different, throwing different things around. And like Todd said, this is a moving target. It's something we're gonna have to be flexible with to be able to use this money, and I think Randy knows that probably better than anybody because he's constantly working to make sure this money gets spent. And, the citizens, I ask y'all to also call your representatives and senators and ask them to get us some money to help us, because we do have ready-to-go projects. Help us. I mean, we're prepared. We're ready to go thanks to our staff. And we need some help. Anything else? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. And all those opposed? So it's 5-2. There's that. Are there any questions from the news media? Are there any questions from the public regarding the agenda item, or any comments from the public? I think we have one public. Do you have any comments?
Just that I agree with the 5 of you.
We'd love for you to give your address so she would have it too.
204 Rapala Way, Lexington.
And your name for her.
Judy Quayle's time. TINR.
Thank you, we appreciate you being here. Any comments from the staff?
No, Mayor.
I would like to say too, before we conclude that, staff has figured out that there's a few things that they would like to do different to make this a little more transparent for the public out there, since council has wanted to be fully transparent with everything going forward, and that they'll be working on that and putting those things in place. But we do appreciate y'all and all the hard work you put in. With that, and hearing nothing else, that concludes our business for this afternoon's meeting, and without objection, we are adjourned.